Story 1. What about communities that cross-post from other communities to mock them? Story 2. A good post in one subreddit might be a bad post in another. If something is relevant in one subreddit but irrelevant in another, the downvotes from the subreddit where it is not relevant would offset the upvotes from the post that is highly relevant. Story 3. Sometimes you cross-post because the original poster was unpleasant, so no. Story 4. Different subreddits exist for different content. Should upvotes on the subreddit watch people boost a troll post to the subreddit? Story 5. There are many ways to misuse that system. People might post irrelevant content repeatedly across multiple platforms. Story 6. Karma farmers will just download and re-upload the image before posting instead of using the cross-post function. Regardless, I think it would be a nice feature. Story 7. I would prefer development to focus on a feature that prevents users from seeing cross-posted content more than once in their feed. Story 8. How would you feel if people did not use AskReddit for trivial matters like this? Story 9. This is not a good idea. Think about it. Someone could manipulate the system and cross-post their own work to gain more publicity. Imagine a musician wants to post their song. After posting on a major subreddit, they could then cross-post to all the music subreddits that fall within those subreddits' guidelines. Even 4 or 5 extra upvotes from each subreddit would make their post extremely popular on the subreddit they originally intended. Perhaps this would only be a good idea if a certain threshold were met. Story 10. How about when a repost is upvoted, the karma goes to the original? Story 11. Reddit consists entirely of either self-posts or links to posts on other sites. Another post in a different subreddit is no different. It just shares content from outside the target subreddit. Story 12. Epstein didn't kill himself. Story 13. On one hand, that would be helpful most of the time, and on the other, there are many instances where a post is appropriate for the subreddit to which it was cross-posted but not the original. For instance, I regularly see cross-posts from You Don't Matter Give Up to Don't Dead Open Inside, for which I would like to upvote the cross-post but downvote and report the original post. Conversely, there are cross-posts that I would like to downvote for being off-topic, but I would like to upvote the original. What I would like to see is upvote and downvote buttons within the cross-post window. Story 14. People could potentially manipulate the system to artificially boost posts by cross-posting to many subreddits. Story 15. Why are you asking this as if you have the power to do something about it? Story 16. I just would not care. It is fake internet points that do nothing. Story 17. Not a fan because a post is as much about the context of the subreddit as it is about the content. Story 18. I would feel indifferent. My penis will not grow bigger from getting a large number of internet points. Story 19. How about only the original poster gets the upvotes on their account, but the repost still trends according to current upvotes? Story 20. Just because someone posted a submission that is off-topic in a specific subreddit, which is then cross-posted to a more appropriate subreddit and becomes successful, does not mean that the original poster gets credit for posting something that does not fit in the original subreddit. Story 21. People would cross-post their own content in as many subreddits as they could find to gain karma, and Reddit would become even worse than it already is. Story 22. I think if implemented correctly, it could work. However, it needs to be more than just if a repost is upvoted, the original post also gets an upvote to prevent abuse. It could give credit to the original post, especially if it is not by the same author and the new post has significantly more upvotes than the original. Proper implementation is essential. Story 23. I would feel good about a feature that automatically upvotes the original post when someone reposts it and takes credit for the original content. Story 24. I think that back when Reddit started 12 years ago, most of the audience were IT professionals sitting in server rooms typing thoughtful comments on keyboards. Now that it is mostly young people saying whatever comes into their heads on their cell phones, I believe the quality has dropped. You can rearrange the deck chairs on this Titanic all you want, but the fact is they captured lightning in a bottle and then let it go. Someone else will capture that lightning, and that is where I want to devote my creative energy. Story 25. This would be an epic addition to Reddit. I have had people cross-post things by me and get 3 times the amount of upvotes, and have me accused of reposts. Story 26. Wrote this Christmas rap for my talent show in the voice of Playboy Cardi. Kinda nervous to share it. Here we go. Santa wants my attention. His elves want my attention. His partner wants my attention. Cookies and milk got someone looking thick. In my stocking, that's a surprise. Flexing on Dasher, hit him with the stick. Grand Theft Auto stole Santa's sleigh. Bend it over on my jingle balls. Make that ho 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 lick the tip. On the naughty list, I'm really with it. See Prancer under the mistletoe. Reach back like a pimp. Slap the hoe. The Grinch trying to get close, that's a no. Miss Piggy, you can get it though. Santa in the kitchen eating an Oreo. Another Christmas in the 310. Story 27. How about Reddit gets rid of this upvote and downvote nonsense altogether and just lets people discuss? No more karma issues. Why do people care about karma? It is artificially created drama by the developers and people fall for it. Story 28. Upvotes and downvotes are meaningless, so why complicate uselessness? Story 29. How about a feature where you can exchange your karma for real-world currency? Story 30. I like the idea, but some posts do not fit particular subreddits, so a post not appropriate for one subreddit could get upvoted because it was cross-posted into a more fitting subreddit. Story 31. Sorting by top in many small subreddits would be heavily skewed by cross-posts to major subreddits. Story 32. Like it, but would depend on the context of the subreddit. Story 33. The problem lies with cross-posts that criticize or make fun of the original. Story 34. It sounds okay, but I might not want to upvote the post in the original subreddit. Story 35. Tell me how anyone could ever successfully implement that, and I am on board. Story 36. It would be better if it upvoted the original post and downvoted the copy. Story 37. I like this idea, but maybe allow moderators to turn it off on their subreddit. Story 38. No, because individual communities should decide what gets upvoted in their subreddit. However, links to the same source content reposted within a certain time frame should be handled so that the original post receives the credit. Story 39. Sometimes posts are upvoted because they fit the theme of the subreddit very well. For example, if someone cross-posts something from the subreddit funny onto the subreddit breathing information, there would be no correlation between the two posts getting upvotes. If you upvote the post on breathing information, you are not saying it is particularly funny, and vice versa. When upvoting, context matters. Story 40. There are some problems. Maybe just make the upvote and downvote buttons available for the original post and cross-post. Story 41. Hell no. The original might be a Reddit lost Redditors case, while the second one is posted in the correct subreddit. Also, it is good the way it is. I don't think there is a need for a change. Story 42. No, the original might not be the best place for the post, but if it reaches the all subreddit, then it is the best post of that subreddit, even if it is not relevant to the original subreddit. If you want to gain karma, do like every other user seeking karma. Story 43. It makes me realize I prefer my entertainment platforms to be autocracies, not democracies. I do not care about points or reputation or who created what, or who has seen it before me, or even if I have seen it before. Just give me cat pictures and little children falling off bicycles. Story 44. Only if it is opt-out on a subreddit by subreddit basis. The subreddit I moderate had a daily comic post do well by our standards with 30 upvotes. One of our subscribers posted that day's strip to a larger subreddit. It did moderately well by their standards with 2,000 upvotes. With the near-automatic cross-post system we have in place today, this linked upvote mechanism would overshadow all our posts by a factor of 50. It would remain the hottest post in the subreddit for several days, preventing daily comic discussion posts from appearing in people's feeds. I am all for giving the original poster karma, makes people happy, free internet points, but even when it is relevant to both subreddits involved, upvotes are very different for different communities, and this feature would harm smaller communities. Please think of the small subreddits. Story 45. Massive potential for abuse. Just cross-post as much as possible to maximize reputation points. You would basically be parallelizing reputation points farming, which on the one hand appeals to me as someone who likes process optimization, but on the other hand would probably lead to an excess of duplicated posts. Story 46. You work for me because someone cross-posted my original content and received a platinum and silver award, while my post got 30,000 fewer upvotes and no awards. Story 47. I feel that Reddit is doing something great for the original creators. Story 48. Test it. If it helps with frequent reposts, that is excellent. If reposts become literally every post, then remove them completely. Story 49. I usually just click the original post and upvote that one. Story 50. We should have a feature where if you reply to a comment, that comment you reply to is automatically upvoted. Story 51. If I like it, I will go to the original post and upvote it there manually. Story 52. You would need a subreddit that tracks everything to stop the trolling. Otherwise, the people involved will take advantage. I like the idea, but there are too many harmful individuals out there. Story 53. I do not think this is a good idea. One vote per person is the foundation of democracy. Also, it would encourage mass cross-posting. I am not in favor of this idea. Story 54. Reddit, how do you feel about requiring elderly individuals to take a mandatory driving test every year? Story 55. This feature could be abused to inflate post karma across different subreddits. For example, posting negative content about Donald Trump in the Donald subreddit, then cross-posting to the Impeach Trump subreddit, and then watching the chaos erupt. Story 56. This would prevent karma thieves, which is mostly worthless anyway, but will be sweet rewards for karma farming robots. They can cross-post everywhere they please, and before you know it, the entire front page is one video from the funny subreddit in 20 different subreddits. Story 57. I feel like this should have been a thing since the beginning. Edit. I read other points about abuse and that in one subreddit it would be humorous and in another serious, and I agree maybe it actually is not a good idea. Story 58. Sometimes cross-posts are made to criticize the original post, so there should be an option to prevent or undo that. Story 59. Negative. If the original title is inappropriate, I do not want it receiving my upvote. Story 60. Well, original posts are usually stolen content from other sites like Twitter, so they do not necessarily deserve the recognition. Second, content means something different in various subreddits. Votes are partly meant to indicate if the content belongs in a particular subreddit. Therefore, for these two reasons, it is a bad idea. Story 61. Subreddits that cross-post content as criticism or jokes would be significantly impacted, as cross-post heavy subreddits such as Upvoted because Girl, United not giving a big bold buy and very clear honest intentive decision committed to impactful change but good, and what could go wrong would be severely affected. Story 62. No. I do not want my upvote for a post making fun of the original post author's idiocy to benefit the original post author. It would create an incentive to create low-quality posts, repost them to subreddits about low-quality posts, and gain karma. Story 63. No. Cross-posts have to stand on their own. If you implemented this, then cross-posts would become a kind of vote manipulation. 2 for 1. Imagine I post in cats being assholes and cross-post to Ginger, Gone Mild, and clown porn. Suddenly my 100 kitten peeing in a shoe upvotes magically become 400 upvotes. Story 64. Who cares that much about upvotes? Do not turn Reddit into YouTube. I bet the next stage is profiles with 100,000 or more karma doing advertisements. Story 65. I only upvote the original post, never the cross-post, but this would save me time. Story 66. There should be a special button for cross-posts that allows you to do this. Some cross-posts are meant to critique or mock. I love the idea, but because of that, having the option to upvote both or just the cross-post would be great. Story 67. I would love this. I have reposted content before, not for recognition, just out of interest, and it would be great if the original author received credit as well. Story 68. It would make sense, but also I do not know. I would feel okay about it. Edit. Maybe if it upvoted the original instead of the cross-post, but still. Story 69. It would not really help that much. Most duplicate posts are not cross-posts. They are blatant reposts. Story 70. I would prefer if it were easier to update the original post without having to navigate to the post and then back to the subreddit you were on before. Story 71. Not necessarily cool. The thing about upvotes is that sometimes the subreddit a post is posted on is a factor in whether or not to upvote the post. For example, if a story of an entitled mom is shared on Darwin Awards, I would not upvote it, not because it is a bad post, but because it is in the wrong subreddit. If someone then cross-posts it to entitled parents, I could upvote it there but not upvote it in its original incorrect location. Story 72. For a subreddit like, I am very random, it would not work because you upvote content that is not funny and just stupid. If you upvote a post on I am very random, you would automatically upvote it on, let's say, memes, and it would seem like you found it funny. Story 73. No thanks. I dislike how often I see the same content repeatedly. Story 74. It would be great that way it is not as easy to seek attention for good deeds. Story 75. Maybe a way to separately upvote both from the same window so we can easily upvote posts that we like without having to upvote the ones we do not. Story 76. Yes, it is always sad when the cross-post has 100,000 upvotes and the original has 1,000, so I always take the time to upvote both. Story 77. It seems like different online communities would be upvoting the same content for sometimes contradictory reasons. Story 78. There should be upposting and downposting. Upposting is when you like the post and want to share it. Upvotes will go to the post. Downposting is when you do not like the post, and upvotes will not go to the post. Story 79. I would like a feature that automatically hides all reposts of a post I have already seen. Sometimes the front page shows the same post 10 times in a row across multiple related subreddits. Story 80. Makes sense, but does it really matter? I wish we could share certain posts within the communities themselves. Story 81. Depends on the subreddit. Some of them are only funny because you are making fun of the original post. Story 82. Could this lead to a feedback loop where the original post references the cross-post and upvotes spiral infinitely? Story 83. Wouldn't this start a trend where you cross-post to as many places as possible to gain karma? I mean, more than now. Story 84. That would save me the extra steps I usually take. But what if someone makes an outlandish post and it is cross-posted to an extreme subreddit because the first original poster is extreme? Story 85. I think it would be great as an option for use within subreddits but not across the entire platform. Story 86. I genuinely thought this was already a feature. If it is not, it really should be. Many times, people do not even notice when something is cross-posted and just upvote it, which leads to gaining karma from good content without it technically being a repost. Story 87. Any repost should upvote the original regardless of its age. Story 88. That would help prevent some of the Rule X. No cross-posting or cross-posting is an instant ban. Idiot subreddit rules on here. Story 89. I click the original and upvote both. Hold your applause. I am no hero. Story 90. I could not be less concerned about anything, to be honest. Who cares about this? Story 91. Would save the trouble. I always upvote the original. Story 92. I honestly feel that would be a great idea so that the original creator of the post is credited for their work. It would also make it more difficult to steal people's posts and become more popular than the original. Story 93. Broke. Cross-posts give karma to the original poster. Woke. All reposts would only give karma to the first poster. Story 94. How about banning cross-posting and just tagging in other subreddits so that a single post shows in multiple places? Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.